Hello and welcome to another episode of The Backdoor Cut. We are sitting here in Enniskillen with Seán Quigley of Fermanagh for a conversation about all things Ulster Championship, all things Fermanagh and all things his career. So join myself, Owen McCabe, Darren McGurn for another fantastic episode. Hopefully you all enjoy it. It's an explosive one. Seán Quigley, welcome to the Backdoor Cut podcast. I'm getting nervous. I'm fluffing my lines because I'm in the presence of Fermanagh royalty, as you've been telling us for the last half an hour anyway. So welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, lads.
What excited you about the opportunity of sitting down with an opponent and a former teammate?
I don't know. I suppose it was the money as we're talking about really got me going. But and I wouldn't just say a former teammate. God knows me and Dara could strike up a partnership yet. But no, just something different, lads. And I've enjoyed the podcast. I've been following Dara now for a long time on social media, on and off the pitch. But yeah, it's glad to be here.
You're probably one of the few that's seen Dara's growth from when he started initially the page to where he is now. Obviously, they know his name when he comes in through the building. Yeah,
well, come here, Enniskillen's not a big place, so I wouldn't be getting carried away with that. No, to be fair to Dara, he has built up a huge platform there now, and all credit to him. And the same as yourselves, lads, it's a brilliant platform you have, and it's everyone's buying into it, and it's a niche market, as they say, isn't it? And yous are really making the most of it.
So you're not ruling out a return to inter-county football there. That's what you're teasing out.
No,
but you're in a position now where you can offer some insight into your thoughts around how the Ulster Championship is going to go, free from criticism from teammates. So how do you think the two lads are going to fare this coming weekend? And what did you make of the game last weekend as well between Cavan and Monaghan?
Well, I suppose looking from a Fermanagh's perspective, you know, it's a tough game. A home game against Armagh. The only grace to have for me is the fact that it's in Enniskillen. Enniskillen over the years is a notoriously hard place to come to, and it probably has lost that a wee bit over the last 2 or 3 years. You know, I think back, I know it's 6 years ago now, the last time Armagh came, pretty much in the same situation as Fermanagh are in now, and we turned them over comfortably. You know, it's going to be an uphill battle. You're going to have to you're going to need everything to go your way, get the luck of the green, decisions to go your way. But there's no reason why Fermanagh can't really put it to Armagh and hope to be there with 10 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go, and you wouldn't know what had happened. But it's
I want to stick on that now. So from experience, and maybe putting yourself in Dara's shoes now, what would you be thinking about doing to get under the Armagh players' skin, or to get one up on them going into that game, even tactically?
Well, I suppose it's hard for me to say now because you're outside of the loop. If you're inside the loop or inside the group, you know, obviously Dara's not going to let anything out of the bag now, but they would have a game plan. They would have scenarios in place to see where they can get an advantage. You know, like that time we played Armagh, like Rory was over us, Rory Geller, and he went to extreme lengths to get a notch on the other team. I'm not sure what the lads are doing at the minute, but I'm sure within the group, I don't think it's a case now where you're nitpicking for things to find to get an advantage on a team. Basically, if the work's done, the work's done. Once you cross the white line, I don't think you're going to be trying to play tricks on people to get an advantage. If you have the work done, it'll tell on the day, and unfortunately sometimes if you don't have the work done, it'll tell too. So I think Fermanagh, if they have their work done, they can only be confident as a group, and I'm sure they will be, and that'll hopefully take them over the line.
That's a very positive kind of mindset to go in with, because it probably gives connotations that Fermanagh should focus on their own game and not worry about trying to stop Armagh.
Yeah, to an extent you have to worry about your own game, but you can't be so naive to think that you're not going to worry about Armagh either. Armagh are a top team. Armagh have serious aspirations of not only winning an Ulster title, but pushing on and probably getting to an All-Ireland semi-final or final and pushing on and eventually winning that at some point. So you can't be naive to think, it's the party line, you read the media this week, we're fully focused on ourselves, blah, 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 like tick box, but you can't. You're looking at Armagh, you look at the threats they have all over the pitch. You cannot not focus on them, with the players they have. But in saying that, you can't be solely focused and tunnel visioned on what you're going to do and forget to play football yourself.
So then what do you think is key to nullifying their threat? And do you think it would be a high scoring game or a low scoring game?
Well, to nullify their threat, I don't think you're going to nullify it. You can just manage it. There's no way, like with the players Armagh have and the players that they brought through this season. I'm thinking of that. Is he Connaughty in the corner has come on and he's a real threat. Obviously, Ryan O'Neill got 20 minutes last weekend or 2 weekends ago. He's going to be pushing for a start. There's no way you're going to completely nullify them out of the game, but you need to just try to manage what they're doing. In terms of a high-scoring game, I don't think Fermanagh want to shoot out. Maybe Dara will disagree. I'm looking at a supporter's head on me, an outsider's head on me. I think if Fermanagh are going to be successful in this game, it needs to be a cagey, tight affair and hope that they get a couple of breaks, couple of goals. And I'm not saying that Fermanagh couldn't go out and kick 2-14 or 2-15, but it's highly unlikely. If Armagh opened up, you see what they've done against Cavan, 2-25. They have the players all over the pitch and their confidence is through the roof. Even though they lost that league final, they have the ability to really go to town if they wanted. I think I look back to the league game Fermanagh played. That was a cagey affair. It was Fermanagh hit them on the counter several times, and Fermanagh were unlucky not to get a couple more scores. Now, in saying that, Armagh could have had 3 or 4 goals. That's the type of game I think Fermanagh will look to play. Suck them in, turn them over, and hit them on the counter attack. Because one thing with Fermanagh, they have serious energy and serious pace all over the pitch.
Dara, without giving too much away, obviously, and being in the camp, and we don't know if you're going to be playing, obviously, at the weekend. Your rebuttal to what Seán said there, like, would you agree with pretty much everything he said there, or what would be your perspective on those previous fixtures against Fermanagh earlier in the year?
I wouldn't take a massive amount from the league game, to be honest, because again, it's a league game, and did Armagh bring everything they could have brought that day? It didn't look like that. But again, to win championship games, it has to be a dogfight, and Seán even attached that in terms of when we did beat them a few years ago. It was a complete, as you've said a few times before, like they were coming off that pitch, probably hating every single player in the Fermanagh team. So it has to be that way. You have to just be a complete dog and then bring whatever tactics that you have to the game. And again, as he says, obviously focus on nullifying their threats. Like, there's no point saying any different. They have 5 really good forwards, at least 5 to 6, that are capable of notching up 2, 3, 4 points a game. So man-to-man battles is going to be absolutely huge for one. Defensively, you just have to be unbelievably solid and tuned in for the full 70 minutes, and then obviously just try and play your own football going forward. Like, Armagh are going to more than likely set up with a defensive enough setup as well. So it's about being smart on the ball as well and trying to break that down. But as I said, if you don't come with that absolute dog in you in a championship game against someone like Armagh, they're going to roll over the top of you.
We'll move on to Antrim and Down in a second, but you might be on a little bit more defensively minded than the two lads, if that's fair to say.
Just I'm picking up tips here.
I know you're a forward now, as you'll tell us in a couple of minutes.
I wouldn't say that. I've read it chased Owen's heel.
But in terms of what Dara touched on there, in that a team can have multiple threats on the field, is it very much in a backline just focusing on your man-to-man battles against a team like that, or do you have to be very cohesive as a unit and actually communicate well and maybe switch up who you're marking every now and again?
It's definitely a bit of both. Like that's a cop-out answer, but it is a bit both. Yeah, obviously first and foremost there's going to be matchups. You're going to be marking certain players, going to be given roles to mark certain players and try and keep them as quiet as possible. But just for the way the game goes, like everyone's going to know who they're playing against. They're going to know what threats the other team has, and the way the game goes these days, you can find yourself in any position. So you have to be prepared. You have to be tuned in to what's happening. But yeah, yes, you're trying to contain your man, but you're also trying to put them on the back foot, and you're trying to, I suppose, if you're looking at the top teams, there is an element of limiting the damage, so you do want to sort of pack things out. But yeah, the personal battles are going to be massive as well. Like,
just to touch on what Dara said about championship being a bit of a dogfight, does a man-marking job change come championship versus a league game, or is it the exact same thing with just a little bit more intensity?
Yeah, it's the same, but just a bit more intensity. Like, I think when you're given a man-marking job, you know yourself, like, you have to go out and you have to try and do whatever you can to put them off or get the better of them. Like, so you're bringing that intensity anyway, because you just, I think as a defender, you love it because you just have like one sole focus nearly, and anything after that's a bonus. So I think just with championship, everything does go up a level, but you're still bringing, even for a man-marking job, I think it's almost easier to bring the intensity because you just have one sole focus nearly.
Just to touch on Cavan and Monaghan before we move on, did we think that was a bit of a dogfight, maybe more so in the second half than in the first? Because I know we were speaking previous and before the podcast, and we were talking about how potentially it didn't really have that much of a championship feel to it as a game.
Yeah, well, I felt leading up to the game, it didn't have much of a championship failure. There was no real build up to it. I thought, with regards to the game, I thought the game was actually quite good. It was interesting in the first half. I think Monaghan, looking back, will be kicking themselves that they didn't go for it a wee bit more in the first half with the breeze. Cavan executed their game plan perfectly, sat in, kept themselves in the game, and went for it on the break and with the breeze. So credit to Cavan. And people were saying, it was a shock. I think because Cavan were Division 2, Monaghan Division 1, so you're always going to say Division 1, Division 2, it's going to be a Division 1 win. But Cavan, I think, obviously had a few weeks to prepare. Cavan were safe in the league, probably weren't going to get promotion, so 2 games out, they probably had full focus on Monaghan, where Monaghan were going right down to the wire nearly to stay up promotion or relegation. So Cavan obviously had their stalls set out and executed their game plan perfectly.
It's a bit of a lazy argument though, isn't it, to kind of just say that the team that is in a higher division is going to go and win the game, because there's very little between, say, the top 2 or 3 teams in Division 2 and then the bottom 2 or 3 teams in Division 1. Yeah. Would that be fair to say?
It is, that is fair. It's a lazy comment to make, but the other thing, though, the thing that I find was, because there's such a short break now between the league and the championship, Monaghan had very little time to go and just say, right, take a month, regroup, get our act together again and get the ball rolling again. There's an awful hangover from getting relegated, and to get yourself prepared again in a week's time to play a championship match, it's a lot to ask. If they had 3 or 4 weeks, get a few injuries read up, get the likes of Rory Began back into the group, it could be a totally different game.
I know every podcast is probably going to talk into death over the next few weeks about that break, but is that what the break offers you? Is it almost like a fresh start and maybe an opportunity to just eradicate any sort of injuries? And maybe it's almost like moving from one season and then, right lads, let's park that and move into a whole new season straight away.
That's exactly what it is. To what you're saying, you're parking, whether you could have a positive campaign or a negative campaign, you're parking that up, and you're just, right, the ground's starting to get a bit harder here, you're starting to wear mouldy boots and you're going at championship football. It's a different game. That feeling is kind of gone out of it. I think personally, now I'm not involved now this year, but I just, in terms of looking from the outside looking in, there's not the same feeling around it or something. Maybe I'm missing something just in terms of that.
I know this is going to be a lazy comment, but the weather is fucking shite, isn't it?
That doesn't matter.
And then I think you're right as well. Like, what do you think, lads, in terms of rolling week by week into that first round? Did that affect the numbers of supporters at the game at the weekend, do you reckon?
Probably, like, I even watching the game, I had to remind myself a couple of times, like, this is Ulster Championship here. I think because you literally had the league finals the week before, just you're involved in playing in the league, and then you see another game and you're just thinking it's another league game. And even in the crowds, yeah, like we were, McGurn was chatting beforehand saying the amount of neutrals that probably would have went to that game. Again, if it's in the middle of summer, the 18, 19, 20 degrees, you're probably going to get more people after will go out for the day. But yeah, I would agree. I think it's because it's just run off so quickly. Like, you blink and it's championship time already. Like, so, yeah, I think it does take away from it a wee bit. Like,
I know the two of you are in an interesting position because, like, you've both just rehabbed or returned from injury as well. But do we think that potentially we're rolling this championship through too quickly and the player is almost suffering because it's quite taxing to play game by game, week by week?
I think it's clear after the game at the weekend there when you looked at Monaghan's first 15 and you could see there was 4 or 5 players missing, and it was the same in a few other teams that I was looking at the weekend too. Like, players don't have that opportunity if they do have an injury to actually rehab and get themselves properly championship fit. I think there's just loads of reasons. Like, obviously the weather is one. The game at the weekend was played with the gale force breeze, and it just completely impacted the way both teams could play. Cavan obviously sat in and were able to just nullify Monaghan for that period. Monaghan probably didn't change what they were going to do and continue to play with a sweeper, which probably wasn't the best idea against the gale force wind. I'm going off for a bit of a tangent here talking about the weather, but yeah, I just think you need that time. You need that time to be able to get your body right. And championship football is about being primed. Like, it's literally the main part of GAA is senior inter-county championship football, and we're rushing it and we're playing it in April time when lads aren't fully fit, lads are carrying injuries, the weather's shite, and you're just taking away the spectacle that could be there. It probably will come in the next 2-3 months, but that'll be Carlton Cup and All Ireland series, so I just think we're losing out in probably 2 months of good quality football.
Just to cast you back to earlier in the season, and I'm trying not to just throw this on you, but you did say, geez, it'd be great to play matches every week. Is the way the game has gone now, like, it's so high volume in terms of the running demands and so high volume and high intensity for the duration of those games, we probably need a few break weeks within the season so that you can get the body right to actually contend and play in every single game.
yeah, I think so. But I think it's what you do in the weeks in between as well. Like, if you're playing a big game at the weekend on Saturday or Sunday and you're going out on the Tuesday night and it's a big session, or the Thursday's a big session, like, you're just going to be constantly hovering in that state of fatigue. I think it can be, I think the numbers game starts getting played, and it's, we must hit this, we need to hit this. But then on the flip side too, where you maybe have lads, they're just going week to week, just get me right for the game, and they're not getting any good quality training either. So it is a fine line. But I think, as you say, with the intensity that the game's going at and the intensity of training, I think the majority of players are going to be carrying something or feeling something going into the game. So the break weeks are good to get the energy back up, get the body feeling right. But realistically, what's another week going to do for a lot of players? Not an awful lot, like.
But from what you said there, it would do a bit if the training volume was dropped down and people didn't kind of worry that, lads, they're doing this up at Armagh. We need to be absolutely dogging ourselves down here and absolutely baiting off each other in training. Did you, Seán, find a difference over the years? In, like, you played for Fermanagh for over a decade. Was it easier to last the duration of the season and contest and play in every single game? Obviously, when you were younger, based on the intensity of the game and the way that the game was played. And then how did you find the last few years of your career?
I suppose it's probably hard to say because as you get older, it becomes more difficult, obviously. But when I first started, there was, like, you played the league games, there was a break. I think maybe a week's break or a 2 week break, but then inevitably you had maybe a 6, sometimes 7 week break before the Ulster Championship. If you got knocked out of the first round of the Ulster Championship, which we did a lot of the time, you had another 6 week break, which at the time it's an awful length. But if you had a month, you know, after the league, I love playing the league because you had game week on, week out. And if you get momentum, it's a brilliant thing in the league. but that's league football. League football and championship football are worlds apart. And that's what's happening. You said about, you thought last weekend looked a wee bit like a league game, because it's the momentum of the league has gone through to the championship, where you're not having a definite cut-off point and say, right, like it is a flip of a switch to say, right, into championship mode here. But in terms of as the years went on, like the training got harder, you know, it was more intense. You were doing more, you were expected to do more. Bit like you said about Armagh, could be doing this, right? X, Y, and Z are doing it, we need to do that. You know, when I first started out with Fermanagh John O'Neill was over us for a year, but then Peter Cavan was over us. Like, so to be fair to Peter, you done what he told you to do. Basically, the stuff he used to teach you was football related, because he played at an era where it was just total football, like total football. Obviously he had S&C coaches and stuff like that, but in terms of S&C coaches then compared to now, it's a world apart, like a world apart. S&C coaches now are nearly naming the team and doing everything else.
Yeah,
because they've such, not to take away, because they've such a big role to play in the makeup of a county team. They're key components of any, like I can get any manager that goes into a county team now, I would say his first protocol is get into an S&C coach. Where 10 years ago, it would have been, you know, some gym instructor out of the forum. Leon.
The sports science aspect has gone just...
Has it gone too far, do you think?
Come here, I don't get caught too much up on it. I don't, not that I don't believe in it. Good luck to anyone that wants to get involved with it, but I think at times it's just, you know, I could have a page of stats and Dara's 10.2 meters per second and stuff like that. Then
he has been on the piss in 2 years.
You know, and it at times is that gonna get you? If Aidan Falker and you have some other Armagh boys baiting the shady in the corner of Brewster Park, it might get you out of it, but it'll not help you if you have the ball in your hand and you need to drop it onto your left foot to kick it and use your weaker hand and wee things again. Not to take away from anyone. Like anyone that's maximising themselves, good luck to them. Perfect, and like everyone's doing it. I think it's just the influence of these fucking online coaches. But yeah, and they want to get better. But I think, you know, to keep up the skills and all, it's so important. But the county footballers now are a different animal. Like they're different. They're fitter, stronger, faster, and they're better footballers than years ago. But in terms of that side of it, it can go mental. Like you're going now and you're going to club games and you're going to club junior games and there's people, you're taking stats and boys are only out to get out of the house for an hour, and that's just as important as Fermanagh and Armagh playing on a Saturday evening. Like it can just go a wee bit overboard at times, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I agree. It's funny that he's saying that as well, because like obviously when clients come to us and they're like, okay, what do I need to be doing? They'll commit to doing the speed work, they'll commit to doing the extra conditioning, they'll commit to doing the lifting. But if you ask them a question, when are you doing any sort of skill development? They'll say, oh no, sure, I get that in the team training session. There's very few lads that are committing to even 15 minutes prior to the session to work on kicking off both feet. And I know you always post about it online as well, about skill development and how important it is. You've touched in the past on the athlete versus player debate. Do you think there are far more athletes in GAA now and not enough players?
And I think maybe that has probably been misinterpreted a wee bit, athlete and players. Like there's athletes and players. Players nowadays are athletes. That's just a given. And they're players, really good footballers. I just think that there's become a template of a player that, like I know, like I've been watching Fermanagh all year, and I know 99% of Fermanagh players, and I've seen them playing club football, and I could go to games and go to county games and I could see them playing club games and they could be doing stuff in club games and you're thinking, Jesus, he like kicking outside of the boot points from 45 yards out, and you go to a county game and it's just so monotonous, it's so cagey, it's everything's percentage, you know, we can't do this, you know, that's a high percentage shot, that's a high percentage pass, where if they go back to their club game, you nearly feel as if the shackles are going off them and they're just letting loose, and they're doing stuff that you know they can do But then when they go into the county scene, it's just robotic, and you go back to being that templated player where you could play a 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 and be a 7 out of 10 every day instead of trying to make something happen. Like Rian O'Neill, to be fair to him, came on in that league final. Every time he got the ball, he wanted to make something happen. He was going forward. Granted, kicked a couple of bad wides. He was rusty, kicked a couple of bad passes. But in his head, he knew what he wanted to do. He wasn't going to be the man that just recycles the ball and has 35 possessions, no giveaways, 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10, you know.
You're talking about role players, I suppose, and maybe when they go in with the county, a lot of those players aren't confident enough that they're going to retain their jersey if they do play that kind of maverick role. Do you see that in county teams with lads that come in, especially the younger lads?
I think it's within your club, you're guaranteed to play every minute, and you're going out and you're going, right, no matter what I do here, I'm going to play, so I'm going to take a few shots, I'm going to enjoy myself. Whereas in a county setup, if you go out and you do take that risk and you're not, maybe there is 4, 5, 6 players that do have that license, but for a lot of them it's, if I do make 3 mistakes, I'm going to be taken off. If I do make a few mistakes, I'm not going to start the next day. So there is that, the risk factor is there to an extent, and it 100% creates that game where it's very robotic and it's very run the ball down the sideline, give it to the boy that's right beside me, run on in, get deep, you know, all of those things. Like, that's the stuff, that's county football now. And I think it just comes, it simply does come down to that fact that you could be dropped.
Does that eke into training as well? Do lads train the way that they play a county football level, or do they maybe try the outside of the boot, score the odd time at training, but they'll never try it in a game?
I think me and Owen were actually talking about this before in terms of in-house games, just get very, they're just nothing like a county game, because to get into a team, you're going to have to take risks. You're going to have to show something in training that you can do. If you're running around in training, taking no risks and doing nothing, you're never going to play. Even though a lot of coaches will say, you know, we're going to play the players who do the right things on the ball, who play the simple game. We don't want any heroes. It doesn't get into the team. So to an extent in training, you have to be taking those risks. And if they come off, happy days, you have a better chance of probably making the team. If they don't, then she in the bench.
Yeah, but you might as well have a crack.
I know. No, that's what I mean. Like in training, the players do have a crack. There is that, to an extent, players doing things that they probably wouldn't do in a game. But that's where it changes. If you want to get the jersey, you're going to have to show something. Like,
do you think you can coach it? Well,
Coach
that kind of maverick style, take risks or play with risk?
I think so to an extent. I'm just thinking of when we had Stevie O'Neill, Seán Quigley, and some of the stuff Stevie O'Neill was doing with us was just unbelievable. Like, just so enjoyable, but just stuff that I've never gone to training and been hitting shots from the end line, or inside the 13 out in the wing, and he had us doing it every session, and just you almost go back to playing as if you're a kid, like, and you're just going and enjoying it, and then you are playing a few more passes, and like, granted, you're not gonna, there is a time and place to go, right, this isn't a percentage shot, I'm not gonna take it here, but when you're maybe in a further out there, you're in a position where you know you can maybe clip something and you're going, right, this is maybe on the edge, you probably back yourself that wee bit more and go for it. So I do think there's a fine line between, there is absolute mavericks and they do some stuff and you're just going, this is class, like just watching this. But I do think it should be coached more for players to back themselves a bit more and have a look up and play the ball rather than being so robotic and flat and playing the lateral pass. Like
it's not even maverick stuff, in my opinion. It's not outside of the boot worldies. Like, it's boys on the edge of the D looking round more or less to say, please take this ball off me in case I kick it wide and I'm on the screen on Thursday night saying you're not a shooter. You know, it's not maverick stuff. It's not end line shots. I've seen, like, I wouldn't name check any, but a couple of Fermanagh games where just boys just need to just back themselves, and it's a percentage shot, tap it over the bar, but they're just, I don't know whether it's not coached or I've seen it in other kind of games. It's not a worldly, like, it's just back yourself.
It's not a priority either, is it? In training often.
Not massively, like. I think a lot of it is about, well, from our experience, a lot of it is about running. Yes, there's times where it is, you do work on it, Just thinking back to last night, we had a good session last night. There was plenty of scores being kicked, like, but I think when you work on it, it's refreshing too. Like I go back to, we're chatting about how serious it can be in numbers and getting pulled up in video and stuff, but when you go back to it and you're just playing football, like it's the most enjoyable. We say we just love playing games, like, and when you are just allowed to go and get kick pass and get playing, get in game scenarios, like, it's class. But I was going to say, do you think that we're chatting about Mavericks here, and you say it's not Maverick stuff, and do you think it's just because everything is so robotic and so structured that someone doing something, hitting a 40-yard kick pass, you're going, oh fuck, there's something we don't see every day?
Probably that's probably where the game has went at the minute. You know, there's very few people. Like, I don't know. I don't know what way to explain it. When I was playing, I would probably try it too often, and if I'm a training, I'd drive the fucking manager mad, and I'd be trying eye of the needle passes, just stupid passes, and sometimes they'd come off, but majority of the time they wouldn't come off. Like,
but you keep doing it as well. A lot of the time they didn't. But the thing is, as well, if one didn't work out, you'd be trying again and trying again and trying again.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be taking the piss. Like, you'd know your limits, but not that I was trying to force it, but just because I'd know I'd have that in my hopper to take that. I'm not saying I'd be the only one. Like, Dara would have it. Any of the lads would have it. It was just at some point, and like against Armagh at the weekend, Fermanagh need to do something different.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot play a regimental, just back sideways, a templating game. Players need to do something different. You're going to need a wing half back popping up for 2 or 3 points, or a goal, or something different. You know, just get 3 or 4 marks. You have to think outside the box.
But just to touch on what you said there around you were trying it in training, and some of them weren't coming off and some of them were coming off. Confidence often comes from evidence. So, like, if those players aren't kicking it from just outside the D in training, they're probably not going to be likely to do it in a match. Do you think back when you started out, players were more likely to try those type of things in training because they saw it on the inter-county level, or even at club level? It was more apparent, like there were more of those type of actions in the game.
Well, I suppose now, to be fair, the game has changed. You know, it's very hard to get space now to kick up, to make a great pass like that in the modern game, because there's so many numbers everywhere. When we first started out, you'd have been just kicking just for the sake of kicking, like, you know. It's hard to tell. The game has changed that much over the last even 5 or 6 years, and it's actually changing. It seems to be going back towards a more kicking game. Like, you've seen a Pádraig Faulkner interview after the game. He actually talked about Cavan trying to implement a kicking game, and that's nice to hear. And like Armagh, to be fair, they kick the ball. Donegal are kicking the ball more. It's evident that teams are trying to kick the ball more. Whether at times there has to be a healthy balance. Like,
these things go in cycles often. Do you think that's just happening because that's the way that it goes? Or is it happening because of all these rule changes? Because there's rule changes on the edge or the tip of everybody's lip every week. Are we just tinkering for the sake of tinkering? Should we just kind of let lads go out and play football?
I would say, at times that saying, you don't fix what's not broken, is this? There's very little wrong with our game, I think, at times. But you say it goes through cycles of different game plans. Obviously, Jim McGuinness has done it all years ago, completely revolutionised football. For the better for them, they won 2 or 3 Ulster Championships, one in Northern Ireland, probably should have won another one. And teams then went on that to try and replicate it. It's changing all the time, and it takes people like that to come in with a vision on how they see the game played, and then teams need to look at ways that they need to maximise their potential and how they're going to win too. So, but it seems to be going back towards kicking it.
So, would you be changing anything with these new meetings that they're doing up in Dublin, or would you be just maybe taking out stuff that they've put in already?
I wouldn't be changing a big pile. This could be a dodgy one for an inside forward. I think the forward mark has took away from the game. I know I got a few off Owen last year. 2 years ago, he wasn't too happy with that. But no, I think at times it's an unfair advantage for a forward. If you have someone that that can kick a decent ball into you. If you're like 1v1 now, like there's very few now that you're going into a game and there's 2 or 3 sweepers where you can get space. Now if you're 1v1 and you're not winning marks with a decent kicker of the ball coming in, you're doing something wrong. It is. I love it when I'm playing. I love getting marks, but it is definitely an unfair advantage for it. Yeah.
But there's very few of those forwards around now that have made like such a skill out of that 1-to-1 battle and the high ball that it's almost a huge asset to the team that they have to play.
Oh God, it's the mark. I can guarantee you teams aren't talking about the mark in up to Ulster Championship games. If you had a good game, you could be 3 or 4 points a game, like easy marks. I mean, 30-yard kick passes. Just a game
Top of the day here. Yeah.
No one uses it.
I'm happy enough as a defender seeing it goes down. He scored 4 and 2 from marks, 2 from frees. I'm going happy enough. I've done my job.
But even from watching a few clips, like that was a real skill of yours. Did you think about that at all, or was it natural? Was it not coached?
You know, that was coached. You know, there's no doubt about it. We had Peter McGinnity trained us in Roslay. Myself and my brother, when we were Slay, we were relatively successful in the early 2010s. We won 3 or 4 championships. We literally would have went out, and no exaggeration, 20 balls on each side of the pitch, and there would have been 5 men on the 45, and me and Seánie in the edge of the box, and them just banging balls in for 20 minutes before every session, banging them in just on top of us all the time. And you know, and the amount of times we got, people would say, like in championship finals, like, balls punched into the net, flicked balls into the net, jammy.
So we know all of it. That in Cork Park.
Yeah, it's like jammy, but it was coached. We trained on that we honed in on that because it was an advantage to ours. We were probably a wee bit bigger and stronger than the boys we were marking at club level, and like the mark wasn't in at that time. But if it had been in, we'd have just made
World Championships.
But it's not that it was coached. It was definitely coached.
Was it more of a physical battle, or was it kind of anticipation of the ball coming in, or maybe a combination of both?
I think if you get into a physical battle, it becomes a physical battle, and it's very hard to win the ball. The thing that I had was, you need to be very wary of who's kicking the ball in. You could get boys in the ball, could be loopy, but if you can get a man that can drive a ball into you with the outside of his boot, like for Roslay, we had a couple of boys, you know, in particular, that if you seen them on the ball, you knew that it could possibly come in. It's all about the delivery. You get used to judging the flight of the ball. Like, the one thing that you have as an advantage as a forward that you have on a defender, the defender has to worry about the ball and worry about you, where you just have to worry about the ball. So the defender, lots of the time when I was playing, it'd be in front of you, one eye on you, one eye on the ball, and he could misjudge the flight of the ball, and you're in. Like, you have one job to do, and that's watch the ball. You'd be surprised the amount of times the defender gets caught under the ball.
Was that what you found the most difficult?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like those days, that first day up in Brewster Park, it was like, right, we were chatting about man marking earlier, and I got told in the meal before, there's like, I was marking you, I was like, right, fuck. I was going chatting to the boys, like, right, how's this man play? Like, what's going on here? And then that's all I was focusing a bit. But then it depends who you're marking as well. Like, different forwards will have a different style of playing. Like, we were playing we were expecting, right, you're probably going to throw a couple of high ones in on top. So it's like, right, I can adjust the way I'm standing for that. Whereas if someone's popping the ball in, someone's winning the ball out in front, you're going right, I have to mark these in front here. And then, as you say, you're looking at the man, you're looking at where the ball is, you're looking at where the play is, and then a few more things start coming into your head. But that's the challenge, like, and that's what comes with playing that position.
Did they also tell you when you went on your little recon mission that he'd be talking to you throughout the game as well?
Sure, I get one mess of that to me. It's like,
that'll be a good crack out of it. That wouldn't be that you talk about things like an inside player's head. That wouldn't. I would just talk to anyone. It wouldn't. It's not. It wouldn't be that. I tell you, I used to do it to Shea Cullen. We used to be training, you know, and playing in-house match, and Cully, you know, 2 of them, the best lads. You won't beat better lads, you know. But Cully used to come to training, playing in his, and he'd say, I'm not talking to you guys. I'm not talking to you, because I'd be talking the next one, bang, I'd be going, all of you, that's it, I'm not talking to you guys. No way, I'm not talking to you. But he got into his head that I was trying to upset his game, you know, where I was just talking to him. But I could talk to him about anything, you know, could get into his head and he'd be talking away, you know, that's right. Next to the ball would be over the bar. But No, that wouldn't be my game. I don't think, getting inside people's heads. Try not, anyway.
But you're almost putting them off in a sense as well as relaxing you on the field, because you're just having a chat, like. So, but you're still aware of what's going on the field, whereas they're kind of drifting. Geez, I don't know what I had for breakfast, actually.
Well, I suppose at times, it probably is a good enough mechanism, because one thing I never had when I was playing was pace. Just didn't have pace. I couldn't rely on just pure pace to win ball. I couldn't do it. So I had to think outside the box, and it was a bit movement, maybe getting in behind you or just confusing you a bit. My movement generally was side to side, and that's not taken away. I move side to side because I try to stay as close to goal as I could. Get the ball close to goal, have very little work to do to get it over the bar. Whereas if I was running with a one in a sprint, I'm going to be eaten up and look like a loser, look like lazy, unfit, out of shape county footballer. But if I was in moving side to side, which was coached again, I'm going on with Peter McGinnity again. He coached that. He coached us that. We moved a 10-metre radius across the penalty spot, because he knew that. So the ball was going. That's where we done our damage, and he knew that we didn't have the pace to win the ball elsewhere. Which is fair enough. People, it's horses for courses, and it's people. Not everyone. But nowadays, everyone's hitting 10.2 or whatever it is.
But even if you look at the clips that I shared every weekend, pretty much, of the forwards that are getting the goal scoring opportunities, it's not that they're absolutely sprinting 10 metres per second. It's that they're making 3 or 4 different runs before they actually lose the defender, and then that ball comes in. Is that a skill that you learn over time?
Yeah, movement is, I think the big one is, again, anticipation of who has the ball. There's when there's certain players on your team that they're not gonna, if Jesus Christ himself appears in the full forward line, he's not going to kick it to him. He just doesn't want to do it. Where if you have players that that are proactive and looking to get the ball forward and are backing themselves, that's when you can come alive. I think that's an advantage over defenders as well, because defenders are always aware the ball's coming in. But if you're aware of the player that has the ball, right, there's Darragh O'Gorn on 11, he has the ball, right, come alive, make your run. Instead of doing doggies every time the ball comes up, because it's unsustainable. You're not going to be able to keep it up. I think the thing is anticipation.
When you get the ball out the field, then are you looking for specific teammates inside? Is that your first port of call? Head down and run through.
No, 100%. It depends who's inside. And even speaking from your own experience, I always enjoyed playing inside when you were out the pitch, because I knew it was simply just about losing my man then, and the ball would be there, it'd be in that space. So you have to be cute who's on the ball. You have to know as well when you're out the pitch, who you're kicking the ball into. And that's a mistake I see quite often, even still at county level, is players on the ball just giving it if the man's roaring for the ball coming to them, not regarding who the player is coming for the ball. Are they going to be able to do anything with that ball if they get it? So that plays, it's just massive. And you'll see it in the top teams as well. I suppose it's probably a bit different when you go to Dublin and you go to Derry, because
they trust everyone.
Everyone's capable of going inside and winning the ball and turning and putting it over the bar. So, especially now that the space is so limited inside as well. There is only, in most teams there is only maybe 3 or 4 players that are capable of winning the ball in that tight space and being effective with it. So, that's potentially why there's not much kicking.
Armagh, for example, I'm watching them, when Rory Gregan gets the ball, the forwards come alive because they know he wants to find them with the ball, and he has that in his game. He's a huge player for Armagh. You can see, even that day in Brewster Park, you could see whenever he got the ball, they went up a level in terms of their anticipation of the ball coming in.
I heard on the GAA pod, I think it was last week, they were talking about certain players and certain teams, when they get the ball, they look from the furthest point back before they give that pass, whereas lesser players maybe look to the closest players and then look forward.
Very good observation, yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? And is there different players in the team that who you said there, like Rory, like does he get the ball and the forwards know he's going to look straight at me inside here straight away?
I'd say he's probably thinking, right, what is the pass that's going to get us best result here, you know, in terms of scores, and then he probably degrades them down, and maybe if he sees right in that split second, right, that's this option. But in his head, or in all them players' heads, they're probably thinking, right, which pass is going to get us the best outcome here? And I think the way you explain it there is probably perfect.
Is that similar to kind of what the goalkeepers are doing nowadays with the kickouts? Is it just a fundamental thing that all footballers should be coached on, if that's the way that the game is going?
I think so. I think it's back to trusting yourself and having that instinct of, you talk about players playing with the head up. Like you want to, the objective of the game is to obviously score more. Like if you're looking to play that pass inside, it's going to, as you say, get a better return. You're going to look for that right away, and you should be looking for that. I do think there's stages where we're chatting about numbers and being put up on screens, and sometimes coached out of players. Maybe it's not even coached out of players, but maybe it's just players' reaction to go on, fuck, I can't be shown to give this ball away. I need to play it safe here, and maybe not backing themselves. But then I think players have to be looking forward and looking at going, right, what's up the pitch here, and as you say, go down through that. Like I think there's probably still not enough of it. But I think from goalkeepers as well, they're probably looking to get. I think that's probably a great example as well, because they're looking to get one over the top, or if there's a bunch over one side and they see someone out there, they're going for it, and it could be two. You see how many times you get 2-3 kicks and balls in the back of the net. Like, it just looks class.
You nearly see goalkeepers now, they're reluctant to take the easy.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's not showing their full repertoire of skills, you know. And there's no doubt about it. You know, you see Began straight away. He wants to hit the 60-yard. He wants to show, and rightly so, because he has that in his locker. He wants to show people, right, this is my game. Like and any keeper, I can guarantee you, they absolutely hate chipping the ball out to the left corner back, because it doesn't show what they're doing in training all week, what they're capable of. Yeah,
they're always thinking though, probably, what is the quickest pass in which I can get the ball up the field?
100%.
And that's probably how outfield players probably need to be starting to think nowadays, as well, as it changes from more of a hand passing game. I know it's going to vary team by team and what the strategy is, but if it is going to go back more kick passing, that probably needs to be coached in the young lads. And then I'm just laughing because often you'll be told as a young lad, I just want you to play with the head up. And as a young lad, you're probably saying, what the fuck does that mean? Did you see a difference in terms of how the younger lads coming into the team needed to be coached? Did they need a little bit more direction, or did they respond to a little bit more direction, more so than you and the older heads that were in there already?
Not really, because to tell you the truth, I never really seen myself as an older head when I was in there. I enjoyed the crack with all the lads, the younger lads, and it was only last year when I was sitting on the bench for a couple of games thinking, Jesus Christ, I'm over the hill here. But no, I think the thing about when, like, the likes of when Dara and Alton and them lads came through, there's the Bran, the couple of St Michael's lads, the fact that they came in, they were very obviously conditioned. They were primed to be county footballers. There was very little in terms of tactical and awareness stuff. They were all so switched on. But in terms of actual qualities of football, I don't think they realised they were as good at the time compared to when I was coming through the county team. There was only maybe myself, Brino came in later on, Aidan Breen, Cian Connor. Maybe there was only about 3 boys, about 21 or 22, around that age group in Fermanagh club football that were capable of playing county football. But like when you came in, there was an influx of boys. There might have been 7 or 8, all at a level where they were ready to go. You know, maybe a few lads needed to bulk up a wee bit or whatever, but in terms of footballing standards, they were ready to go. Whereas when I started out, you were lucky to get 1 or 2 to make any impact. Like,
do you find then when those lads were coming in that there's that they're not sort of conditioned to the game yet, so they're playing off the cuff a wee bit more, they're just going for it? And then do you find that they sometimes get that coached out of them, or comes out of them for a wee while and then maybe comes back in a wee bit later down the line? Have you noticed that cycle enough?
It probably did, because when like everything else, when you're called up to a county panel, you know, it's an exciting time. It's probably something that you've aspired to do your whole life, and lots of boys might go in and be you're going in thinking, right, I'm going to just show what I'm made of here, and you can throw the shackles off. Because realistically, are you going to be angry if you don't keep playing? Are you going to fuck the manager off? Why am I not playing in the first couple of years? You're not going to. You're just going to sit there and bide your time. Well, that's what most people do anyway, but maybe not so much now. But I think you probably get institutionalized a wee bit with it.
Yeah.
You know, you become a county footballer straight away after a couple of years, and it's like getting up in the morning. You know, you're just thinking, right, do what they tell me, do what they tell me, do what they tell me, do what they tell me. I get it done. Whereas whenever you're 18 or 19 or breaking into a county team, you were loving life. You know, not that you're not loving life when you're at now, but you had probably a wee bit less pressure, more I think probably less fear of.
Less fear when you first.
Yeah, you have more fear.
Cycle.
Yeah, you have more fear. You think because when you're becoming out, you have more. You have to set an example of how to be or what way to play it. Thankfully, I never.
So about that.
Thankfully, I never subscribed to that way of thinking. But maybe if I did, I'd.
I was going to say, did you ever feel any fear yourself? Because it doesn't sound like all the time you did what they told you to do. But that sounds like it was potentially your strength as a player.
Well, if I hadn't done what I was told to do, I wouldn't have played county football for 10 years. I played football for Fermanagh from 2011, 2010. Lots of managers, and obviously it fell out with a few, but never to an extent where he wasn't involved in the county panel. Maybe a few bust-ups here and there, maybe 2 or 3 month break and then come back. But to that degree, you toe the party line, but you have to be your own person too. You cannot, you need to be your own person. And that's what makes the individuality of being a footballer so great, you know.
But then, to go back to the dressing room, did you see that in the younger lads? Are they free nowadays to showcase their personality, or are they coming in and I'm ready to be a county footballer, I want to be one straight away, so I'll do whatever I have to do to be that?
Yeah, and I'm going back to these online coaches. I think that, you know, social media has a massive impact on what, I'm going now and I'm looking at, you know, reserve footballers, junior footballers, lads that are recreational footballers, and they are convinced they're county footballers, you know, because it's streamlined into their brains, you know, and that's not getting at people that's in that business. If you know any good online coach, I don't know what you but it nearly is, you know, and lads are coming in with the mindset they know what it takes to be a county footballer. You know, when I came into the county panel, I hadn't a clue what to expect. I was going into a county panel like Barry Owens, Marty McGrath, you know, Mark Light, Liam Maguire, boys that I grew up watching in Croke Park in 2004. Again, Jesus Christ, if these boys want me to wash their boots, I'll do it. Like, you know, I hadn't a clue. It was just, it was nearly a novelty for me to get in and say, right, on the county panel. I think now, because there's so much available to younger lads that are going to make that step up, I think they're ready for it. It's not such a shock to the system, because lots of lads that are coming into the county teams now have their work done. You know, they're just top it up. Can't have them get in like first couple of training sessions thinking I was going to die. Well, no, that was every pre-season. You know, I never came in primed and topped up ready to go. But and that was the case at that time. Like, boys used to come back. Everyone, like 90%, there were very few boys when I started out with county football came back in good condition. It was the given, right? Go and come back, and right, we do the 6 weeks dog, and like that's checked off. Like, very rarely boys come back and hitting these big 10-point whatever speed meters per second. But it was the way football was, and it would have been the same in every other county too. Like, it was just a different. I know I'm starting to sound ancient here, but it was a different era of football. Like,
do you think that through that being institutionalised and being primed and ready to be a county footballer, and through the stats and wanting to be an effective role player, a lot of these lads that are playing county level football might be losing a little bit of the joy that you get from the process of being a footballer, or maybe the enjoyment that comes along with inter-county football. I know it's fun to win, but are the training sessions as enjoyable when everything's just...
I can only speak from my own personal point of view. The training, I never had a problem with training. I never, training was grand because you have the football in your hands. And to come here, people have this perception, I didn't train or whatever, but I dog like the rest of them. I'd go and do the dogging sessions. It's the death by analysis sessions. They blow my mind. Sitting, watching mistakes on a TV screen. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't need to see this again. I know I've made that mistake. I know what I have to do to correct it. And I'm thinking, if you don't know you've made that mistake and you have to be shown that on the TV, you shouldn't be in this room in the first place. You shouldn't be on a county team. You shouldn't be at that level if you don't know you made that mistake. That's the way I think at times that can be overplayed. But it's like everything else. If Dublin's doing it, if Tyrone's doing it, we better do it. And at times, in my opinion, now this is just my less is more at times, boys, I think if you're training on a Tuesday, gym Wednesday, training Thursday, match Saturday, I think the management at times they're thinking, right, we have to do something Friday evening. Get them in on a Friday evening. Instead of saying to the lads, go home from work, relax, chill out. And a lot of the times boys want to do that. I think it's just less is more at times. You're nearly looking for to kill time, to make up time. Like going away on down the country for an away game. Like the away games used to be great. It used to be class, get away, but then you'd have a meeting, go get something to eat, have a meeting about the meeting that you had, go to bed, tape Dara's mouth shut, for match of the day off, match of the day off at 9:30 because there's no blue lights. Yeah, that's the first time I've seen that anyway.
But it's funny the way everybody thinks they're doing the right thing by doing more all the time. But I was saying to the lads, I was in with New Zealand Sevens a couple of weeks ago, and they had their team meeting prior to the training session. It was 15 minutes. They showed 3 clips. And as soon as the coaches showed the clip, the coaches almost sat down and the players went, that was my fault. I should have done this. And then, well, I don't think it was all your fault. I think, could you have done this, so-and-so? And then somebody else stood up and they gave their perspective, done, dusted.
Yeah.
2-3 minutes. If you do 3 clips, as you said, it's probably more valuable than doing 25, because if you do 25, sure, the blue lights are on too late.
That's sometimes you go in, you do your warm up, you do your prep, then you go up to the video room and sit there for half an hour doing video, and it's like, right lads, out on the pitch, ready to go. It's like we've been there an hour, 45 minutes beforehand doing your warm up to go sit down on a seat, to go out onto the pitch again, and
and a lot of the stuff is very basic. I know people go into so much detail, and that's great. Like you're getting player profiles of them by your mark, and he's left footed. I'm thinking, right, if you don't know he's left footed after the first time he touches the ball, after 5 minutes you're shouting over, give me a look at that sheet quick, I can't remember what foot he kicks with. It's I know people have a job to do, and people think, oh God, that man was in so much detail. As you say, that's New Zealand rugby, the top of their game. That's the way they do it. So see why. Yeah, sure, GAA football.
Where do you think I would go if you pulled up 3 clips and asked the lads to analyse that?
I'd say with some of the Fermanagh boys, they just sit there and keep their mouth shut.
Well, video was there, as you said, you've made the mistake and you probably learned from it. The only way the benefits, probably other players might see a mistake and think, great, I can learn from that. Would be one benefit from it, but I do definitely think there has to be a balance too when you're bringing up video between mistakes and between good things. Someone was reading the other day as well, like if you're constantly seeing mistakes, I think it feeds into then what you're doing in the pitch, whereas if you're actually seeing what you're doing well, it can feed into just confidence and how you actually feel.
They actually did that as well. They finished on a good clip before they went out on the pitch.
Yeah.
So that I suppose they're probably thinking, yeah, we can do that, so let's just go and execute it.
A lot of the, I suppose, mistakes too, or they can be uncontrollable things at times as well. Again, I think it has to be short and sweet. It has to be like very specific things that are related to stuff that everyone can learn from.
I think the majority that do try and base it around, right, here's our structure, here's how we're trying to set up, here's what we've been doing. We didn't do it here, but it should be relating back to the overall game plan. And I think we're sort of saying it here as in boys are getting hung out to dry. It's not always that case, but don't get me wrong, if someone does something ridiculous, they're getting put up.
Actually, sometimes there's overkill. A lot of the stuff, it's overkill, yeah. And nowadays, sure, clips are sent out to players' personal phones and stuff like that. So.
Not everybody watches them though.
Only the good bits.
So all of ye have played under multiple different managers, and we're just talking about stats and video and going into mistakes and game plan, etc. Out of all the managers that you've played under, do some maybe go way down the detail route and do loads of video and loads of focus on mistakes and loads of focus on the game plan? And then others maybe a little bit more hands off and they just kind of say, here's a game plan, go out and play football. And is there a balance to be struck there, or is it different for a different manager?
I think from my experience, a lot of them have been very similar in that there's a lot of talk about structure and numbers. Some maybe, I suppose it depends what they're looking at. I think they're always, different managers are going to come in with different metrics and different things that they want to work on. So they're going to place a lot of emphasis on that and maybe not look too much at different areas that other managers may look at. Like I know I've had managers, we spoke about it before, where GPS is massive for them, whereas we've had managers GPS doesn't mean anything to them, and they're very much looking at stats of the game, what are you doing with the ball. But then again, there's times where you're looking at the number of possessions, and that can be overkill at times as well. It's like, right, someone has 30 odd possessions, but what are they actually doing with them? It's like, right, they kept the ball 90%, but as we were chatting earlier, is it a lot of hand passes? Is it something simple and they're not actually contributing? So I think I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to it, because any manager comes in, you're probably going to find, right, this is good, this could be changed. They're probably going to say something that could be better with anyone that comes in. Like, so I think there is maybe a balance to be struck, but from my experience, I think there probably could be more just go for it.
Trust.
More.
Which did you prefer?
And I suppose they need to be lucky enough that I played under managers, you know. I think of, and I talked about him earlier on, I'm extremely fortunate in my underage career, and the fact that he was a club man of our own, he managed our club team, and Dara would know him, he has been highly profiled around Fermanagh over the years with Peter McGinnity, you know, and his training has not changed. From the day he took me for the first session, he took me in Roslay, to it changed until he finished with Roslay about 3 years ago. He done the same, basically more or less the same session, 10 years. And you know, this it might sound mental, like there was no such thing as GPSs. You know, we used to go out, and he'd done the basics, and as the year went on, we done the basics at a higher level, and as the year went on, the championship season, we done it at a higher level. We got faster, we got fitter, and we were doing the basics quicker. And I think when you break it down to that, that's the fundamentals of football. And it's no surprise to me he's involved with Trinnick at the minute. And they won the Throne Championship last year. One thing we done every day when we went out training, every single day, we went into groups of threes and we blocked the ball until our hands were red. Trinnick won the championship this year, and I think they had 7 blocks in the finals. And people say, you know, oh, Jesus Christ, that's desire for you, that's pure hunger. And it is. But it's coached. It's coached. They won the championship by blocking the ball because they blocked the ball for 6 months prior to that championship final. And like, no amount of GPS stats or anything like that will block the ball for you. And that's just it. Now, that was the way he coached. Now, you went on, as the years went on, obviously in with Rory and Ricey and Kieran and these boys, as the game evolves, I suppose they have to evolve with it. I don't think Rory was too caught up on GPSs. Now, he'd look at speeds and that, and look at distance covered. That's the one he used to come at me about, you know. But the game has definitely changed. But I think it always goes back to the fundamentals of football, you know, the basics. the better you can do the basics, the better you're going to be, and the better coaches, in my opinion, now are coaching the basics to a higher level.
Having seen a few Jim McGuinness sessions and been surprised with how simple the drills are, what you're saying there kind of reminds me of him, because it was all, okay, do this, don't drop the ball, okay, do it faster, do it faster, do it faster, do it faster. But there was nothing to the drills. Do you think sometimes coaches, because the game is getting a little bit more complex, they're making the drills a little bit too complex, whereas you should be just focusing on what you've been doing for the last 10 years, really?
Suppose, you know, coaches are probably thinking now, I have to do something extraordinary here to make out that I know what I'm doing. I want people to say, Jesus, I've never done that. That boy knows what he's at. You know, and that's what it is. Like, you're talking about Jim McGuinness, Rory. Like, we used to do a hand passing drill, like straight lines and 100 mile an hour, and I mean, you would be gassed after. And it's a simple hand passing drill, and you'd be surprised as the session went on the amount of balls that hit the ground, and it was 2 yards. There's no need to complicate it, and that's what coaches are now, because it's a rat race. People are trying to outdo each other and do all these different techniques, you know. And you talk about Jim McGuinness. I guarantee Jim McGuinness is doing that training.
What's he putting the wall up for, so?
I think a lot of it too is when you start complicating drills and making it real fancy and loads of different codes. I know players all over the pitch, you end up getting way less reps, and you might touch the ball 2 or 3 times in the drill. Whereas when you're talking, you're doing that first pass drill, many times you touch,
you're praying not to see it again. Like I'm convinced coaches nowadays are getting paid by the cone. It's just like, how many cones can I put out here? And no need for it. I've seen boys coming out maybe with 4 water bottles and doing the same drill, just as effective as 100 cones. But as you say, like that, like, I'd never want to see that to hand pass.
Before we wrap up, I said we would touch on this man at the weekend, and we've left it till late.
Here, leave it out.
How do you see Antrim and Down going at the weekend?
I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think that they're 2 similar teams in terms of the way they play. Antrim, you know, like we've, in the last couple of years, we have got to know each other pretty well, you know, and the one thing that we struggled with Antrim was their pace, you know, the pace that they had all over the pitch. I know they give us a bit of a schooling last year in the Tailteann Cup. Down, I don't know where Down are. Down are a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team. They've potential to just absolutely railroad you first 10 or 15 minutes, blow you out of the water. I think back to the time, was it last year? Last year they played Laois, 7 or 8 goals, and then went out and lost the Tailteann final, or the semi-final, or final. Oh yeah. They're just so unpredictable. I think if Antrim can stay in the game, not even stay in the game, I think Antrim's in it. It used to be the time where you'd say, right, Antrim, Fermanagh, if they can stay in the game and hope for the best, I think Antrim have good enough footballers to push Down in Newry. Whether they will or not, it depends what Down team is up. Down, I think, have a lot to prove. And I'm still waiting for them to make the breakthrough that, to be fair, that has been talked about for the last 2 or 3 years. They haven't done it yet, so reason why Antrim can't championship match, there's no reason why Antrim can't pull a surprise, but I think Down will win by 5+.
I was going to ask a question, but I'm going to rephrase it. Who would you prefer to see lose?
Who would I prefer to see lose?
Yeah.
Tell you the truth, I don't care who wins or loses. It makes no difference to me. I still have to go to work on Monday. Who would I like to see lose?
Semi-final for
Championship semi-final. I'd like to play Antrim if I was from that, but it seems like a million miles away yet for both teams. That's a strange question. Who would I like to see lose? I have no real affiliation with either Down or Antrim. Just the fact that Owen's sitting.
And you're afraid of him. Well, look, Seán, thanks for coming on. It's been a great chat, real detailed, and thanks to the 2 lads again for joining us on another episode of The Backdoor Cut.
As always, cheers, Seán.
Thanks, mate.
That was cool.